Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. We're here to talk about the issues that can give us a better quality of life, both mentally and physically. Now, one of the conditions mentally that we're not dealing with very well is depression. And it's understandable because normally you get depressed because of biochemical imbalances in your body, nutrient deficiencies, lack of exercise, then lack of relationships, and feeling lonely, being isolated, maybe being out of a job, the loss of a pet, a friend, a family member, myriad reasons why we go through these periods, and we're all going to go through them. I was just thinking about this morning about how many dogs and cats have we had in our life. And a friend just let me know last night that a 17-year cat that he's had that whole 17 years passed, and he's deeply depressed. So I work with him. I was there with him for a couple hours, and I let him know that the only thing that is missing is the energy. Well, the energy is the spirit, and the spirit will stay connected and continue to harmonize. So even though something is physically gone, a person, the energy remains. And that's my belief. And also as a scientist, I've actually been able to prove the power of energy in healing. And by the way, you don't need to be a scientist for this. How often do you walk in a room and people are laughing and you suddenly feel better? You see a comedy and you come out and you feel a good mood. Now compare that to walking in where there's someone angry or bitter, hostile, deprecating to other people, a perfectionist trying to make everyone else feel so inferior, being yelled at. You feel drained. Think of what happens when you overwork and you're overstressed. The next thing you end up with a cold or a herpes outbreak. It's because of the body is trying to help you deal with your crisis. But your attitude and your mental state will make a big difference whether or not you can pull yourself out. And we can pull ourselves out of depression because life is a series of cycles. And I was remembering this. Are any of you in this audience right now, watching and listening, are you remembering the times in the 1970s and 80s, from 1971 to 1985, where we used to do health retreats every single weekend of the summer for 3 months, sometimes into the fall, up at the Fertile Farm? We learned about how to grow vegetables and fruits organically, how to treat the soil, how to deal with animals. In fact, that's where I started my animal sanctuary of rescuing abused animals and getting them back to health. And in fact, we would have people who would be depressed for whatever reason, and we'd give them a pet for the day or the weekend if they're there for a weekend. And whether it was a little heifer, little cow, little pony, chickens, and they felt so much better. And we have to understand that the environment we're in will allow us to feel better. The people around, the larger overarching environment, the people, the environment, allows us to feel connected. So the question is, what are we connected to? And what I was thinking was I was connected to all these wonderful people from my radio audience, and mainly young people. We'd spend half the day playing volleyball, going out on mountain runs, 3-mile run or 6-mile run, sitting around a beautiful, gigantic campfire. There'd be 50 of us around a campfire at night and singing. Great meals. And in fact, everyone had a chance to make a dish. Not all of them turned out great, but most of them did. And we actually had some chefs in there. So you could have upwards of 50 entrees for a meal. Yeah, and what you didn't eat, you could take home with you. And so it was just a wonderful time. Now that time will never happen again because it was the beginning of the 70s where we had the sexual revolution, which had come over from the 60s. We had the feminist revolution, the second generation of it in full swing. We had Back to the Earth movement. We had food co-ops. We had communal farms. We had all these wonderful things happening. We had disco. So that happened. We shared it together. And then another thing happened. It was called AIDS. In about 1985, that ended the disco scene for all intents and purposes. And we went to a different, more intimate, less crowded, less frenetic environment. But what made all these things special? People relating with people. And the more remarkable the people, the more remarkable the experience. The more open the people, the more open the experience. And I have some photographs of those, and you can go to GaryNull.com and probably see yourself, because I took a lot of photographs. But when I remember those things, I remember them fondly. It's the energy. Why do you think when we hear an old song, we listen to it? We've heard it 1,000 times because it's harmonizing with the energy of when we first heard it. So one of the ways I help people deal with depression is, on all levels, by the way, is have them just each day make a list of what you have to be thankful for in your life that you've experienced, as far as the people you've met, the lessons you've learned, the teachers you've had, the books you've read, the artistic environments you've been in, the music you've listened to. All these things are part of our life cycle. So when we start showing appreciation for this day and everything in it, and I said to my friend, I said, how many times did that cat just get up in your lap? You petted it and it just purred, and you both were in a harmonizing moment. Unconditional love that cat had for you. Same with dogs. So that's why I never concern myself about, the dogs making a mess someplace, because the day will come when that dog won't be there to make a mess, or to lick your face, or to run beside you. Nor will the people, nor your friends, or maybe your workers where you work. So right now we're in a time where everything is changing, and it's changing radically. And part of depression comes from what we cannot control. Now, we can control a lot, but we have to actually ask ourselves, are we controlling it in a good way? Are we eating something that's good for our heart and our brain and our muscles? Are we exercising to keep ourselves fit and to keep disease at bay? Are we thinking of thoughts that are constructive and positive? Are we sharing the best of ourselves with our friends, not taking them for granted? Because the day will come when that friend won't be there. That phone call won't come. It'll be a memory. Our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, our best friends. And so how I deal with not falling into depression or loneliness is appreciating every hour of every day, taking nothing for granted, because everything in time will pass. So once we realize what doesn't change, energy, and what is the most powerful healing force on earth? Innate healing energy. You have to liberate it. You have to liberate your mind to be able to understand other cultures and appreciate diversity of ideas and people. You have to be open to that and not allow any conditioned prejudice to be present. You have to say, no, I'm present, I'm mindful. I'm in a different country. I'm eating a different dish. I'm wearing a different outfit. I'm appreciating the music of a different culture. I'm here in this moment. That creates remarkable moments. Be open for the day. Otherwise, what you can't control, you're going to be depressed about. But there's one other reason to be depressed, and that's because we could have a reduction of arginine. That's an amino acid, arginine. Anytime a word ends with nine, it's almost always amino acid. Now, a study from the University of Eastern Finland saw that people suffering from major depression disorder, or MDD, had reduced arginine levels. And a new study shows that arginine, which is an amino acid, which the body uses to produce nitric oxide, is important. Why? Nitric, N-I-T-R-I-C, oxide, O-X-I-D-E, in turn, is a nervous system and immune defense mediator. And it also plays a role in vascular regulation. The global arginine bioavailability ratio, what is called the GABR, is an indicator of the body's arginine levels, and the ratio has previously been used to measure your body's capacity to produce nitric oxide. So when you reduce arginine bioavailability, which is linked to cardiovascular health, you risk cardiovascular disease. Why do you think having beets or beet juice or pomegranates are just two examples? And rhubarb is another one that gives you a lot of nitric oxide. And having the amino acids that you can get, arginine, is very important because it also helps men overcome erectile dysfunction because it increases nitric oxide, and that increases blood flow into the reproductive region. So pretty much that's what's doing the same thing, but safely doing it as some of these medicines that people take, men take for erectile dysfunction. Now, when you combine that with choline, choline, at about 500 milligrams, choline and arginine together make a great stimulation factor for men. Just, it never ends how many good things can happen in the body when you're taking in what the body needs. But most people don't eat beets and don't drink beet juice. They don't eat celery. They don't eat cucumbers regularly. We eat a refined diet, and that refined diet means we're deficient in vitamin D3, vitamin C, vitamin E, and that means we're more susceptible to illnesses. And that also means we're more susceptible to heart attacks and strokes and cancers. So you see, it's not difficult to figure this out. Eat a well-balanced, varied plant-based diet, and you'll get arginine. Then when you need extra, supplement intelligently. And put yourself in the hands of a qualified, licensed nutritionist or dietitian, and they'll help you develop a program just for yourself. Now, talking about vitamin D, the Medical University of Sicilia in Poland found that vitamin D supplementation has an improvement in mood. And that's important. And also for women, a lot of women go through a stage, and it's different in different women, but it generally starts in perimenopause. Perimenopause is what the hormones start to do prior to menopause. And you'll start to see some symptoms like loss of libido, loss of desire, and things you used to find important. You start to feel more fatigued. You don't have the same sleep, 8 hours, good full sleep and wake up. You wake up many times, therefore you break up the sleep and therefore you don't get the full benefit. You start to see the skin start to change. It's easier to become dry and flaky. You start to see around under the arms and around the elbows and across the shoulders and the neck, some crepey skin around the knees. You're just starting to see it. It gets worse. And so people start reaching for cosmetic surgery where that's used, or they start using creams of different types. Very few actually work, but vitamin D does work, and it can improve your mood. And that's why anyone who's depressed, yes, there are a lot of things you can take. Theanine is very good, St. John's wort, but up at the top of the list is vitamin D. This study report resulted in the improvement in female sexual desire, orgasm, and satisfaction, as well as improvement in overall mood after supplementing with vitamin D. So based upon the research, the findings, they said the vitamin D deficiency, and most females are vitamin D deficient. You're going to have what they would consider an abnormal female sexual function, meaning you just have no interest, even if you have the capacity. Because once you hit menopause and postmenopause, many women find it very difficult unless they're taking natural hormone replacement therapy. If they're taking Dong Quai, Fo Tai, passion flower, and a whole variety of different Vitex, natural herbs, they can rebalance the hormones in your body. And what's one of the first things that happens in postmenopause? Dryness in the vagina. Now, you can think, well, that's not such a big deal. Yeah, it is, because millions upon millions of women could end up having infections because it's so thin, the skin at that point, that any kind of movement is going to cause the skin to have little cuts in it, bleeding, and infections. So you can, again, taking vitamin D helps all this. Vitamin C helps us. Quercetin really helps it. Three together, terrific, along with vitamin E. So just something to help you. All right. And you can have your plasma 25, what is called hydroxy vitamin D levels checked. Hydroxy, HYDROXYVITAMIN, hydroxy vitamin D3. Now, they're talking about if you're lower than 2 nanograms per milliliter, and that would mean that you need 4,000 units. I repeat, 4,000 international units of vitamin E per day. And it can make a huge difference. All right, it did in this study, and it has in my own practice. Next up is midwifery. We don't hear much about midwifery. There was an attack for almost 30 years against midwifery. Do any of you remember listening on WMCA radio, where we would have Tom and Bruce and his wife on Dwyer to talk about midwifery? He was a well-known obstetrician, and his wife was a midwife. So they were going against midwifery, trying to say it was dangerous. You could end up having a medical emergency at home and die, or your baby could die. And so that caused a lot of people, a lot of women to go to the hospital to have birth, when it was actually shown that a nurse midwife working with the parents-to-be's diet, exercise, breathing, proper supplementation would have a safer and healthier delivery. Yeah. Oregon State University has just come out with a study, and it says midwifery is linked to a better, I repeat, a better birth outcome. And that's important than what you get in a hospital. So, but there are laws and regulations. They tend to coincide with the lower rates of premature births and cesarean deliveries, which have been way too many, and newborn birth deaths. So they rank all 50 states on the quality of their maternity care. And the first of its kind study found a strong connection between the role of midwives in the healthcare system and what the researchers called midwifery integration, or birth outcomes. And states with a high midwifery integration, like Washington and Oregon, generally had better results, while states with the lowest integration, primarily in the Midwest and South, tend to do worse. This was published in the journal PLOS One. So if you're planning on having a child, get yourself a nurse midwife to help you with the process. Now, a new study out of Medical College of Wisconsin shows the microbiome, that means simply gut bacteria. Biome is another word for it. But it changes all the time depending upon what you're drinking and what you're eating. And it can underlie the nicotinamide riboside ability to protect against weight gain. So having a healthier gut means easier to maintain normal weight. An unhealthy gut fed by bacteria from sugar and processed foods and meat, no, not good. Not good for your gut, not good for your bacteria, which means then the bacteria are not going to help your immune system. Remember, you have two brains. One's up here, the cranium, the other's in your gut. And the one in your gut is very important. It controls your immune system. So healthy foods, healthy gut, healthy biome, healthy immune system. It's that simple. This was published in the Journals of Systems, and how this vitamin B3 derivative that we hear about, NAD, impacts the gut. So I suggest you take NAD, and I suggest you take coenzyme Q10 with NAD, and you take about, let's say, 100 milligrams, and that can really, really help you. So it's also, I'm not even talking about what NAD does for slowing down the aging process and helping you maintain your youth longer. Also, there's a new study from RIT University, which is in the Netherlands, showing how sound waves could help grow or regrow bones. Yes. Researchers have used sound waves to turn stem cells into bone cells in the tissue engineering advance that could one day help patients regrow bones lost to cancer or degenerative diseases. Innovative stem cell treatment from researchers at the university offers a smart way forward for overcoming some of the field's biggest challenges through the precision power of high-frequency sound waves. Tissue engineering is a very important emerging field that aims to rebuild bone and muscle by harnessing the human body's natural ability to heal itself. Additionally, the few clinical trials attempting to regrow bone have largely used stem cells extracted from patients' bone marrow, a highly painful procedure. In a new study published in the journal Small, the RMIT University researchers showed stem cells treated with high-frequency sound waves turned into bone cells quickly and efficiently. That's terrific. That's the beginning of a whole new chapter, because I know a lot of scientists around the world are working with stem cells, but they're doing it in a little different way. And you haven't seen any major publications, but you will, and you're going to see a lot of them. I'm trying something different. And next week, I hope to have ready a whole 1-hour report on how to rejuvenate your existing stem cells. I've been doing a lot of research and tests, and I believe that something natural, non-medical, non-invasive, something you can do yourself can rejuvenate you. So I'll be sharing that along with a whole program next week on how to rebuild your immune system naturally. Keep yourself strong and healthy. So no matter what we face, we're all going to face everything. All of us are going to be infected with different things in our lives, virus, different type, but we're not all going to have the same outcome. That's the latest on health and healing.